Let's talk reactive.
Hello, hi Kuba.
Hey Kuba, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Yeah, happy to hear you guys.
Yeah, you too. Just need to. Oh, there we go. We've got Emilijus on, so that's the last one. Right, I think we're ready to start. So yeah, this isn't our first Spaces, of course, but it is our first one specifically for Reactive Networks. So thanks to everyone for tuning in, or like anyone who listens back to this later. We're joined today by our CEO Rong, our ecosystem growth lead Emilijus, and by our special guest Kuba, who's joining us from. Do you pronounce it IPOR, Kuba? How do you pronounce it?
Yeah, it's IPOR. It's just IPOR. It's
okay, perfect.
IPOR.
Yeah, it's always a little tricky with like projects when you see it written so many times, but you've never pronounced it. I know we've had some interesting pronunciations with PARSIQ in the past for sure. Yes, so thanks for joining us, guys. How's everyone doing?
Hey, everyone. Check. Yes, Emilijus, we can hear you, though you sound a bit muffled.
Yeah, I'll try to fix that. Anyway, nice to be here, guys. I know it hasn't been the best of market conditions for all coins, so everybody who's still sticking around, all the power to you. Thanks for joining in, and happy to chat with you all.
Yeah, perfect. Can everyone hear me okay, by the way?
Yes.
All right, nice. Okay, so it's probably good if we start off with like a little quick round of intros, just so everyone knows who's who and what everyone does. So I'm Dave. I'm a community manager here at Reactive Network, so I look after basically anything relating to community, social media, that kind of thing. Emilijus, do you want to go next? What do you do on the Reactive Network team?
Yeah, sure. Hey again, everybody. So I'm Emilijus. I lead ecosystem growth. So that usually means talking to different people, looking for partnerships, growing the ecosystem, looking for adoption, and just maintaining good relationships with different projects. Not always things have to be all about the intended use cases, but it's all about just keeping the network and growing it so that we can grow our presence in the ecosystem. I used to be known as a BD representative at PARSIQ, but now since Reactive is the direction we're going with, the role has naturally changed from BD-centric to more like a decentralized Web3 ethos-like role to just grow the network of Reactive and keep those relationships and turn them into actual people who we work with and just find synergies with. That'll be a brief introduction on the role of actually the growth lead.
Yeah, the Reactive Network gardener, I guess. So yeah, Ronkai, do you want to go next?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Rongkai, the CEO of the team, PARSIQ, who's building Reactive Network. So, CEO for a lot of different companies means different things, but at least specifically for us, focus a lot about partnerships, about strategic direction of the product, the company, the fundraising as well, of course, and basically making sure that basically like captain of the ship, I'm just charting the course. I'm saying that hey, let's go towards there, and trying to spot things along the way that we need to look out for. Yeah, nice to have everyone here.
Perfect. And last but definitely not least is Kuba from IPOR. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about IPOR as well while you're at Kuba and what you do there?
Yeah, personally, me, I'm Kuba, front-end developer at IPOR, and IPOR is a DeFi protocol. It stands for Inter-Protocol Overnight Rate. And what we do is we offer interest rate swaps, and that's essential derivative to offer fixed rate products. Except of that, we get liquidity pools with automated market makers. Asset management, we get IPOR indices. That's crucial for our swaps, and DAO. But that was 2 years ago, over 2 years ago. Now we are about to release our new product, which is IPOR Fusion. And what is IPOR Fusion? It's a framework for automated asset management on chain, and our goal is to save users time and effort for certain actions. And the first element is Vault. It's for technical point of view is 4626 compliant Vault. And anybody can create a vault, but it's not easy. So we will provide some tools for creating a vault. And yeah, there are some other role is Alpha, which is some creator of the vault, is some entity who provides us, let's call it signals, what to perform on the vault. And the last part are fuses, because IPOR Fusion has modular nature. The fuses are some pieces, some bricks with the vault is created from. So that's basically what IPOR does right now.
Okay, perfect. Sounds like you guys are a pretty broad DeFi marketplace then. We should probably give a little intro to Reactive Network as well, just for anyone who listens back to this and maybe wants a quick overview. Rong, would you like to give a little intro there just to the network?
Yeah, sure. I can start this off, and we just have a nice conversation around, especially the topic for today, the UX improvements, and I think really grateful for Kuba to really come in. As he mentioned, he's a front end developer. He basically, well, this is his domain. He has to do this all the time, and I'm sure he can share a lot more about like some of the subtle differences that developing on Web3 has versus Web2. I think a little bit of introduction about us. I think Reactive Network, we've been talking about it, but I'm sure there are people who's never heard about this before and just wondering, okay, what's Reactive Network all about? We are basically, some people call it like almost like layer 0.5. But we don't really like to call ourselves a layer something. Essentially, what we are building is a decentralized data execution layer that's connecting all the various blockchains and contracts to be able to react to events across all the blockchains that we are connected to. So it's quite mouthful, but long story short, just imagine us as these autonomous vehicles traveling on various different bridges that we'll connect to anyway, or we can build ourselves across the various different blockchains. Different blockchains are like islands; they don't talk to each other, and there's a lot of very good bridges out there already that's facilitating that. And we're going to be on top of them, just traveling. The messages will go, the reactions will go. In some sense, we are basically autonomous robots that is going to avoid things along the way, avoid obstacles, and going sometimes from many blockchains, taking those many blockchains, they process it and then reacting on one or reacting on many. Depends a lot on various use cases. And I think, this is just a short summary of what we're doing. But I think one of the very important thing is why are we doing this? I think one of the very big gap that we recognize in this space, and it's been popping up even when we talk to investors, they do see it as well. But with a very big start, a very big caveat, which is, yes, we are very early. What gap do we see? What we saw was basically this, that Web3 has this gap in terms of developmental experience when it comes to building on Web3. Essentially, if you compare it to Web2, which many developers are very familiar with, a lot of developers started there. If you're a certain age, of course, especially. But if you build on Web2, you deploy the code. It's responsive to basically anything that's happening in real time, as long as you feed it, say, open source data, proprietary data that's updated in real time, etc. And it will go, if this happens, and then what happens in terms of reactions. It allows a lot of complicated coding to be done basically on Web 2. But on Web 3, you can't really do that. On Web 3, a lot of automation, in fact, most or all of automation services that you see on Web 3 by now are very centralized because they can't build it on Web 3, so they build it on Web 2. Essentially, what they do is they feed the Web 2 code that they build, the automation code, from using Web 3 data. And what we want to do is that, hold on, this jumps through too many hoops. If you want to do that, you go through 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 even different tech structures. You have to pull data from across different blockchains. You have to index it, standardize it into a certain format, feed it through. Sometimes you still need to convert the output to something that's standardized. And then you feed it through your own external code, and then feed it through perhaps a response. So you need to go back to all the change response. So you need to go to a node, and so on and so forth. That jumps through so many hoops. And therefore, it's a situation where we're the only industry where you ask any Web3 developer, they'll just say that, you don't need to put everything on Web3. Only those that's really crucial, that's really essential, needs to rest on Web3. What we want to do is sort of push us, even if it's just a little, towards more things on Web3. And the reason why we want to do that is to really underpin the mass adoption revolution going forward. You can't mass adopt this in Web3 in general if everything still rests on Web 2. That's what we thought. And that's what we think, that if you, in terms of developer experience as well, if they're jumping through so many different hoops, so many different obstacles along the way, so many tech architecture, the developer experience is actually quite bad. Each time you are tinkling with something, you need to change everything. That's partly why, for example, when there's whole new functions in terms of a DeFi, Uniswap goes from version 2 to version 3, version 4. They keep asking you to change liquidity. You, as in the users. It's the same experience as if you are changing. Each time your handphone app updates itself, it asks you to delete the old app and download a new one. From the end user experience, that sucks. Each time they sign, you interact with Web3, you sign 3, 4 different signatures, like yes, 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 before something happens. You play a Web3 game, and I remember like when the first wave of Web3 games started coming out, 2020, 2021, and I'm excited. I was excited. I was a gamer, and I went in and just clicked, and it wasn't fun at all. It was just clicking, and I have a lot of friends telling me that's not fun. That's like, what's this all about? And the interest, but a lot of this clicking just to sign approvals before each time you do certain actions, that's all stuck in Web3 for a lot of different reasons. A lot of it is security, but I think we can go beyond that. And long story short, Reactive Network, we can underpin that. I know I've spoken quite a bit. I think at this point, we would like to have a very good conversations with Kuba. I think I'd also like to hear more about what IPOR is doing, what it offers as a marketplace, and a little bit of more in-depth intro, and then specifically Kuba, like what do you do over there? What are some of your thoughts around what you do as front end?
So as a front-end developer, I'm involved in some UX, UI processes, how to build interface of our smart contracts. On my daily basis, I'm dealing with smart contracts. I'm building the interface for that. So I'm the user of that smart contracts, but not a creator, not developer of these smart contracts. So in terms of user experience, I think I can get into that topic because I'm also the user the first layer user who look at smart contracts and try to build the first layer on top of that. Yeah, and in terms of reactive network and things like that, every time when you want to run a trigger, not only set up the strict conditions, but just be reactive for something. In most cases, I think it's still Web 2 infrastructure is in use. Just regular backend who looked at blockchain activity and then performed some actions. There are some other solutions, other hacks how to make other users able to do that to perform that transaction to some incentivize like for liquidations. But in in context of IPOR, things like what's strictly related to DeFi for trading. It's thinking about stop losses, limit orders, streams of assets, to periodically sending some tokens, and somehow. And yeah, and in my opinion, these are the areas that reactive network could be useful to. Am I right?
Yeah, definitely. I think Emilijus has been in this space. He was talking to so many projects, especially at ETH.CC. He was there, and he's been in this space for a while. Emilijus, I think you can share more as well about your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I was writing a Twitter thread about this. I'm not a very popular guy on Twitter, so my post got maybe like 15 impressions for some reason. Maybe algo is down. I'm not sure what's happening. But my point was that everybody in Web3 keeps saying they want to onboard the next billion users, or everybody wants to re-evolutionize something. But the problem I see with our mindset as crypto natives is that we actually think like crypto natives a lot of the time. So the same people who want to onboard the next billion users, they do not think like those billion users. Let me give you one simple example. Like imagine you have a friend who's pretty tech savvy, who's comfortable with computers and things like that, and he's just new to Web3, and you want to onboard him. So imagine that, you do the biggest chunk of work for him, meaning that, the guy will just go ahead and create MetaMask, and he won't have to on-ramp or anything. You just help him out by sending him some USDT, to his address, so he can go ahead and Uniswap and maybe buy some, I don't know, any token. And, in his shoes, imagine you get those USDT on your account, and you then go ahead to Uniswap. First of all, you can't swap just because you have no gas. Okay, you reach out to your friend, say, I have no gas. Can you please send me some Ethereum? Okay, you send your Ethereum. So now the guy is ready to make a swap. So he will input like maybe 1,000, 500, any amount of USDT to swap to get any token, right? And the UI says approve. What does that mean? Like, if you're the user, are you going to be confused? Of course you will. Like, I know myself for the first time when I did that for a few, maybe not one time, maybe 5 times until I got used to it. There's always approve button that's looking at me, and I'm like, what does that mean? Okay, there's no other button, right? So I have to press it. I sign transaction. You wait for some time depending on the chain you're on, obviously, and then there's the button called swap, and then okay, so finally I can swap, and then you have to pay another gas fee. So it's just very not intuitive, and we ourselves, like Web3 natives, we are so used to it, we see no problem with this just because we did it 1 million times. But if you want to onboard those million users, those UX, those small minor UX details, they have to be ironed out. Otherwise, it's going to be a really tough job to onboard them. And I feel like UX is definitely not there. I know everybody keeps saying that. It's just how do we make those dealers ironed out one by one? And I feel like the mindset has to change a little bit to make that onboarding as smooth as possible. But that was just one example. And there are different use cases. Like if we go down the rabbit hole of DeFi, there are so many things you can streamline or automate or just reduce clicks. And that's one of the key things Reactive can be helpful in, is just to reduce amount of clicks needed for the end user, to streamline the whole experience, to make it much more smooth. And that's how we kind of try to provide our value add in solving some of the very prominent UX issues that are plaguing the space.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. I don't know if, like, the example you just gave, for instance, is one of the use cases we've discussed before when it comes to how Reactive Network, for example, could improve that user experience. I don't know if you just want to touch a little bit on how that could actually be streamlined as well, Emilijus.
Yeah, so put simply, once you approve your tokens on the blockchain, it's a Solidity-based event. It's an approval event. And as Reactive Network thought of is on-chain events driven, if this and that system, it can actually catch that. Okay, so there's this approval that has just happened. And if there's a reactive contract that has been deployed on Reactive Network that's actually looking for approvals, and it has the embedded logic inside the contract to actually then do the intended transaction, which in this case is a swap, then the end result is that the end user on the front end will see one button that says approve and swap. So the whole flow is then just simplified. And instead of the user having to approve, sign, swap, sign, you just do one click, one sign, and everything else happens under the hood. So Reactive Network catches the approval, processes the logic of a swap, and then calls back the new state back to the same blockchain, back to the same contract, basically. So that's how it actually works. It's a completely on-chain based decentralized way of automating things and streamlining things without changing anything in any of the origin contracts, basically. Pretty easy way. Our developers have found a way to allow this and enable this for any decentralized application to employ without even having to touch a code of reactive contracts themselves. So it only requires a few changes of code on the original contract and obviously some changes in UI. And you basically get the one-click experience, which again might not seem like a lot for us as experienced users, but if you multiply a few seconds saved here and there by hundreds, thousands of users, you get a pretty meaningful impact on the whole industry.
If I may add to this as well, I think that is really just a start. Like what we want to really start from, especially in terms of UX, is because we were on-chain, right? And we want to solve this on-chain problem. And if you're a DeFi application, you have there will be some parts of it that is on-chain, and that's the part that actually costs the most. I would say it's like a bottleneck. It will cost the most UX related issues for any projects. And the very, very first part is actually on the wallet interactions. Because to interact with it, your wallet needs to talk to it. Blockchains are state machines. State machines means they respond to wallets, and it means your wallet needs to talk to it and says that, oh, I'm going to pay this a bit of gas fees, I'm going to do this. And each time you sign, that is on the wallet side, because all you see is just a string of numbers, right? Very often you want to approve this, and then you see some numbers, and for first, like what Emilijus was saying, for first time users is, they don't know what those numbers are. Well, what's this? Do I just press yes? And sometimes it's quite straightforward. It's like approve. If it's a simple swap, approve this amount for that amount. I think that's something that we want to really start from. I think it goes a lot beyond that, and this is also where we have Kuba here. This is super useful. He can tell us more. I think from the UX perspective, the user experience, it goes a lot beyond that. A lot of times on the front end, it basically means a lot of complicated stuff that's, well, technically on the back end. How do we hide it and make it pretty and make it streamlined? It's almost like building a house. You have all these complicated wires connecting this room to that room, pulling the pipings, everything. Do you leave it exposed? No, you try to cover it. And even if you cover it, there's human interaction. It's almost like you're controlling the thermostat in your house. How does the thermostat looks like? Is it just simple press this button and a lot of complicated things behind the scene works, or do you still need the user to tinker with 5 different buttons and 10 different dials, and then they try to control it? Is this aircraft carrier, or is this just like a simple touchscreen? And there's a lot of thoughts being put into it. I think in Kuba, you can perhaps share a lot more as well. I think how do you feel in terms of that the intersection between, a lot of things, even the website is, well, technically, on the cloud server somewhere, it's technically Web 2. Is it Web 2 interface? And then behind the scenes, all sorts of things that's connecting Web 2 to Web 3. For your job, what are some of the worries that you have right now? What are some of the difficulties?
My worries are mostly multi-steps process. First, which comes to mind as just approval. That's 2 transactions required to make actually one action, and we do our best to challenge that issues that to challenge that. We do our best. So it's just old UX rule we brought from any product development from Web 2. Let's say is just don't allow users to feel scared about the next step, about their assets, and tell them what happened to their assets, to their account, to their wallet after what happened after clicking transaction. Just that. So looking forward for solutions like a Reactive Network to do it way smarter. In terms of IPOR and multi-step process, in context of that, as IPOR, we mostly struggle that our products look too complex. For example, our liquidity mining is 5 transaction processes: provide liquidity, stake IP token, buy governance token, stake governance token, and delegate it. 5 transactions is pretty complex. However, introducing right architecture is on the low level in smart contracts allow us to prepare 1 transaction in batch. 5 transactions in 1 batch. And the fruit of that is our ZAP as 1 interface to deal with all those 5 transactions. 1 transaction where we only set 2 parameters. First one is how much you want to deposit in whichever token. We support the most popular tokens. It's about 10 to 15 tokens and input as an input. And the second parameter is what is your exposure to the risk? And in our case is by picking the APR. That's enough to settle 1 process which is providing liquidity and taking contribution in our liquidity mining. And there is another solution, another protocol which helps us with that, which is Ansel, and they looked for the best routes for the swaps. So there is a lot of stuff which happen under the hood. Swaps, other transactions. There is not only 5 transactions, I think so. And the key is just to get, in our case, is just get things sorted on the low level, focus on the architecture. We use something like Diamond Proxy that allows us to make transaction in batch. Then you can put any abstraction on that. It's just a matter of your labor bandwidth. So looking forward for solutions which are native for EVM blockchains and any other blockchain to do things like that and don't struggle as developers anymore.
Yeah, and I can attest to that difficulty because for context, for everybody's context, I met Kuba at ECC in Brussels, and IPOR had a booth there with a very nice, demo of their platform, and I consider myself a pretty, Web3 sufficient guy who's, constantly dabbling around different applications. But I went to talk to Kuba, and he actually was kind enough to demo the whole platform. And I was looking at it and like, okay, I really have to focus right now to make sure I know what I'm doing. Because it's, by the way, the platform is really nice on the eyes. So kudos to you, I guess, Kuba. It looks really like neat. But in terms of like technical details, you really have to take a look and focus on what you're doing just to make sure you're clicking the right buttons, entering the right amounts, doing the right actions. So I guess that's kind of a good summary on the state of DeFi, especially on the most innovative solutions out there. They're cool, innovative, but at the same time complicated. So one of the things we have as an industry to focus on is to how make those complicated solutions, basically how to make innovation understandable and pretty much straightforward, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, where do you guys think we're at when we're looking at like the differences between user experience in Web3 compared to Web2? Because you look at like, we're just looking at something simple like payments in Web2. You're looking at now just like a tap of your phone onto a device. It's so simple. What do you think of the main differences that we need to bear in mind when we're developing like a good user experience for Web3 compared to Web2? Do you think it's fundamentally just the same thing we're looking for? Or do you think it's important to bear in mind, some of the additional sort of keystones of Web3, like decentralization, trustless design, etc.?
I can start off this one. I think, obviously, I'm not technical. For that, our CTO Danny can answer more if he's sitting in this sort of calls. But of course, today is me and Emilijus, but we do have Kuba here. But I think this is a point where we need to always look at it from the end user experience, and Kuba explained it very, very well. Like at the end of the day, he's the first user, and even if you're a technical guy, when you're designing something, you have to look at it as a user. Like, I'm going to go through these steps, and you don't want it to be really difficult to do. I am probably one of the oldest members in the company, and I was born in the 80s. I'm a millennial, yes, but I was born in the 80s, and I was a kid in the 90s. I use that as sort of an example. We've come a long, long way. I remember dial internet. I remember not just that part, but even gaming consoles where you had to blow the cartridge, going on to CDs. And the very first time we have CDs, how amazing it felt. But how also if you look at PlayStation, for example, you're so afraid of this screen where it says that, they can't read, and it asks you to reset the whole thing. And it goes on further and further and better. And it just becomes a login, select your game. Nowadays, you don't even need to put a CD anymore. Just play. We have come a long way since then. And I think that facilitates adoption. In what sense as well? Back then, most gamers were kids. Some adults who relatively educated, they like tinker around with such things. And then it becomes a case where grandmothers are streaming on YouTube about them playing some games like Skyrim or some shooter games. And this is mass adoption. And it goes beyond that. Now games are coming to handphones, devices where people of all ages, all genders, they can play anything they want. It used to be the case that I go to play a game in a LAN shop, for example, 20 years ago, and you go in and maybe 20% are ladies. And right now, if you're playing a game, especially if you're on a mobile game, maybe half or even more than half are ladies. And of all ages, they could be 10 years old, it could be 70. And you start chatting with them, and you get a sense of, wow, this is more representative of the population. This is mass adoption, and that's how the industry steps in. But if you ask any of them in terms of their user experience, they just, oh, it was easy to get into. I click this button and download. It was easy to play. It was easy to understand. So that in terms of that onboarding, it should be easy. In terms of, especially in a game, there's a lot of steps along the way, gamification of different steps. The game design has to teach them in a simple manner as if it's part of the story. So they don't feel like I need to learn this, I need to learn that. But they basically make it part of that tutorial, and the users didn't even realize that's a tutorial. To them, it's just part of maybe a story-driven part of the game, and they're doing this, and they're doing that. And then eventually, it gets more and more complicated because you start introducing new and new elements. That to me is a good experience. And that to me, that needs to translate to Web3. A lot of these functions, whether you're playing a Web3 game or you are doing DeFi, it needs to be as simple as one click as possible. It needs to be as intuitive as possible. Even online banking, you talk to a lot of older folks. It used to be maybe 10 years ago, they're really afraid of interacting with that. They're afraid of clicking the wrong things, people stealing their money. Nowadays, it's still the case. Some people are still afraid, but especially for certain societies and highly advanced, for example, internet services, people take it as default. You go to the Baltic states, you go to East Asia, and even the 80 grandma is transacting on the phone, and that to us is the right mass adoption angle that we need to look at, and then we translate those experiences from different industries into our industry. And it needs to start somewhere. A lot of it needs to start front end. And the front end can't really start without the back end actually enabling them to really put in the magic. And I think this is where we come in terms of Reactive Network, because we're technically in that back and middle end, and we're enabling all of that to happen in real time. And that to us, the very, very basic step is actually enabling smart contracts to just respond to events. Once you can do that, once smart contracts at the smart contract level, they can have that ability. We're just trying to catch up with Web 2. Suddenly a code can do things it's supposed to do organically. It's basically giving them eyes and ears and sensors for the very first time, and they just go and run. And if they can run, from a developer perspective, you can imagine how much easier it is for them. Oh, finally, let's just offload this line of code and you run for me. I just need to test the outcome. Of course, I have a QA guy to come in and test that, okay, this is correct, this is done properly, and nothing's messed up. And then I don't really need to worry about that anymore. I go on to the next part of the code and I offload it again to the smart contract. Right now, obviously, there's a lot of automation being done as well, but they're all on Web 2. And you can feel that difference now, because the Web 3 talking to Web 2 must be correct. And the Web 2 talking to another Web 2 component must be correct. And then the Web 2 component talking back to the Web 3 component must be correct. And then the front-end guy is just trying to make sure that this whole thing, this whole mess behind the scenes don't get spilled over into the front end. And that to me is a very painful experience. And developers who are trying to improve things on Web 3 right now, a lot of times the experience is to rewrite the code, redo the smart contracts redo the front end even each time we do is basically saying that I can't do incremental improvements. Sometimes I just have to knock down the whole thing and rebuild the whole thing from scratch. And that is not optimal in the same amount of time that a Web3 developers, team of Web3 developers, take to knock down and build something that has some improved functionalities or new functionalities from scratch. A Web2 similar experience, they probably will be at version 10 already because they don't need to knock down. They incrementally improve. Sometimes they need to knock down, but it's just a small part, and they rebuild that part, and then go on and go on and go on. And that's something I think we at Reactive Network, we want to be at the heart of it. I think this is the part where I'll let the rest talk about this issue as well.
Yeah, I had a similar thought. Oh, go ahead, Ed.
No, sorry, go on, Emilijus, go ahead.
Yeah, I had the same thought as Ronkai. I'll just kind of try to summarize it. I feel like if we talk about UX, we have to follow Web 2 in the actual experience. I feel like it's paving the way. It's going to be very hard for Web 3 to overtake Web 2. So while we cannot do that realistically, we can try and just catch up with the good examples of UX coming from Web 2. But at the same time, being a bit like Web3 maxi or crypto maxi, whatever you want to call it, I don't want to sacrifice the actual on-chain and decentralization aspects of it. So ideally, the UX is as good as on Web 2, but we still remain the on-chain parts of it. And for that to happen, I feel like obviously there are account abstraction solutions coming up. The space is trying to improve the situation, but at the same time, I feel like on-chain automation solutions like Reactive Network will play a crucial role in solving some of those challenges, just because they let you run a lot of those things behind the hood, under the hood, in a non-chat decentralized way. So I would say, we shouldn't be unrealistic and say that Web3 can overtake Web 2 in terms of UX in the next few years, but I feel like we can try and catch up to them and use some solutions out there as good examples on what the experience should feel like. And I feel like up to the point, like until we can, tell our friend about crypto and, he'll be able to onboard himself in a few minutes, until we reach that point, we should not be talking about, onboarding that next billion of users. But yeah, like I said, to me, the most important part is to keep everything on chain without using the off-chain solutions, because at that point we're going from Web 3 to Web 2.5 and below. So that'll be my take on this. And I guess we'll give over the mic to Kuba now.
Yeah, I'm also remember the times where even run the video game was a challenge. Now I can play my games even on my MacBook. We got marketplaces, no CDs anymore. CDs, our times CDs are and chains, and there are so many chains. There are so many wallets. No every protocol, no every dApp can use that wallet, can supports that chain. I think that's the biggest struggle for now. First one is there is so many chains. The second one is there is no information. It's strictly technical thing, but there is no information about the chain and the address. So it's a room to make really bad mistake. So just by sending assets to the wrong chain, and immutability. There is no option to revert transaction. So that's not my opinion. I just listen to to other smarter than me persons, and that's their opinion. Yeah, there is no option to revert transaction. So if whoever finds a solution for those three challenges, they won everything in terms of UX, I think. yeah, so we can learn from that times where we use CDs. We still have CD users, DVD users, whatever. So there are two types of users. What I think so. Um, first type of users that crypto natives, and they don't need to learn everything. They are already onboarded, so they feel comfortable with the state as we have now. Maybe they like some improvements, but basically it's okay. And there is a whole area, big area for acquiring new users into the Web3 space. And for that user specifically, we should introduce UX solution which are seamless for them. So as I can grab my phone, just download the app, and I'm just playing my game or on desktop. The process is the same. I don't need to go to the video games shop, pay by cash, bring that game home and put in my console or desktop computer. I'm just playing the game. So I looking forward to times that I just open my favorite dApp on my phone, and I don't know, maybe that dApp could just request some assets from self-custody or custody, maybe banks introduce some custody, and just play with that dApp. Just it.
Yeah, I think you guys make some great points. I mean, not just CD users. I mean, I've got a record player in the front room, you know, so there's always going to be users who favour the classic approach. But yeah, I mean, I think you make a great point though, as well, Emilijus, when you talk about the fact that we need to focus on the positives of Web3 as well, because it's all well and good saying, you know, we need to be as efficient as Web2 and as fast as Web2, but it's, to boil it down, it's kind of like the decentralized versus centralized conversation, and decentralized is never going to compete when we come to just like pure speed and efficiency. But we need to bear in mind also, you know, not giving up on the positives of that, the permissionless aspect, the decentralization. I just wanted to ask quickly though, obviously it's all well and good us, you know, talking about our opinions on Web3 dApps, and obviously we like spend all day looking at this stuff, but for people who don't spend as much time on it, people who aren't even involved, they're kind of the ones you want to know from, really. So I just want to ask, what role do you think that user feedback plays when developing Web3 apps and when developing the UX for Web3 apps? So like, Kuba, do you have any process for sort of determining feedback from your users and using that to determine what changes to make within your marketplace?
Yeah, sure. So the best way to get feedback from users is to meet them in person, and we did that on FCC. We just put the laptop on the front of our booth and ask users to perform some actions, and that was the most productive way we get the feedback. A part of that. We have a strong community on Discord, so every time when the bug appears, we get, I believe so, immediately notified that there is something wrong. You can bring some tools to measure your UX, more technical tools like Sentry, which is event logger, and things like that. Any event logger which reports what happened on your front end will be helpful, because as you deploy your front end and user connects their wallet to the application, you have no idea what happened on the client side. So you have to constantly ask the front end or just create front end in that way that anything user does on their machine, it's reported to your service. Maybe it seems like a spying, but it's compliant with IT standards, and everybody in any app is welcome. So that makes user happy. And of course, it's anonymous. And the last way is just to ask your maybe not friends. Your friend always gives you the wrong answer if your product is good or not. Yeah, I think that's the solutions. You can find also other solutions for measuring your Web3 performance. Hotjar. That comes from my Web2 experience. I spent 7 years in Web2, and I've been in Web3 for last 3 years. So I remember some tools from Web2, and all of them, I believe, all of them are compatible with Web3. It's just front end.
Yeah, I think, like you say, you can't beat direct in person, feedback. I think, obviously, so that's still king, I guess. So I'm conscious we're getting towards the end of our time, but just before we finish up the topic, Emilijus or Rong, maybe you guys could help me with this one. I just wondered, is there any sort of specific examples? We've talked about like the one-stop swap example already. Are there any specific examples we could give when we're talking about using Reactive Network to improve UX design for Web3 dApps that you can think of?
Yeah, I can share a few examples here. So if we talk about lending protocols, let's say, a lot of the times a decentralized on-chain lending protocol will not have a liquidation protection feature in place, meaning that if I'm not at the desk at the moment of volatility, and if my collateral falls in price heavily, likely I'll get liquidated. So something like Reactive Network can be used to actually auto add collateral on behalf of the user once my position, my health factor reaches a certain level. So it's it's up to debate whether it's like a direct UX improvement, but the end result is that it's a beneficial. What's the word in English? It's of benefit, right? It's of use. It's of value for me as an end user to not be worried about leaving my computer, and if I'm not at the time, if I'm just chilling somewhere, and the price falls, let's say, very in a very volatile way, I can be sure that I'll just add collateral, and my position will not be liquidated. So that's probably one of those things that I could think of. Others could involve as simple as having a limit order on a Uniswap v2 based decentralized exchange. So now we know, Uniswap is coming with v4, introducing hooks to enable such feature, whereas, all the v2 forks are left without this. But still, a lot of DeFi is built on top of actually Uniswap v2. So if I'm the end user, I kind of want to have a limit order functionality on something like Uniswap v2 or all those forks. And if I have that chance to place limit order again in a fully on-chain decentralized way, I'm happy to have that option, all day. And then lastly, we can think about, staking rewards or any other rewards in, let's say, SocialFi projects where you, let's say, complete a quest and be eligible to get the reward. Everything can be streamlined, so I, as an end user, don't have to go ahead and claim that manually. So let's say I, do some on-chain tasks. Let's say, I don't know, maybe supply liquidity somewhere, and there's a price for that. Usually, in that case, we'll have to go ahead and click claim, again, sign another transaction, using Reactive Network, all this can be streamlined. So once I do the intended task, I get the result and the reward immediately. So many things we can think of. These are just a few examples. I could go on more about this. But in general, a lot of the things we keep doing in Web3 are still manual, and Reactive Network is there to streamline them and automate everything in an on-chain manner without sacrificing decentralization. But while we're at it, guys, I just wanted to spice things up a little bit because I feel like the topic is still pretty important. And, sorry if I'm catching you guys off guard, but I feel like this is good for discussion. So as we talk about UX and, our favorite dApps, so let's, Dave, for example, what is your favorite dApp that you keep using the most often, especially in terms of UX? Do you have one in mind where, you go to often, and just because the UX is great, you keep returning to that application?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a bit of a boring answer, but for me, like the obvious one I think a lot of people would have to give is probably MetaMask. When we think about it in that sense, because if you're looking at kind of how it's evolved over the years, I think it's managed to maintain. I don't know if you could necessarily say it's became simpler to use, but it's always been simple. And they've managed to add quite a lot of additional functionality. You've got, native swaps, bridging, cold wallet support, etc. And it's simple enough that basically everybody who's involved in Web3 outside of, people who've just come into crypto and they're involved on like Coinbase and nothing beyond that, they've never even made a withdrawal. Basically anyone who's made a withdrawal from an exchange has probably used MetaMask at some point. So probably
That's very interesting. That's very interesting because a lot of the times you see MetaMask being criticized for the UX, and I feel like I saw some very good reviews and thoughts about the Rabby wallet being much better for UX as opposed to MetaMask. Said that, I also to this day keep using MetaMask for all the daily activities in Web3.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just institutionalized by now, but it seems like I couldn't imagine it being much more straightforward without instituting, maybe some of the things we've talked about on individual dApps, like removing the approval processes, etc.
Kuba, Ronka, what about you?
That is also where, that is basically where the first mover advantage is very, very important as well. You need to bring in the first group of users. And once they're sort of used to you, they're kind of locked in with you because most people, they don't want to, nor do they have to go around for other options. They just want to go in, do this, and go off. That's why, for example, your banks want you to become their customer, especially when you're fresh off your education and you're going to the workforce. They'll be camping, for graduates. Because once you're locked in with them, you create your first account, you credit your salaries to them. Chances are you don't want to periodically look at this too long. You just want an experience. And as long as the user experience is not too bad, you wouldn't move away from them. My first bank account in Singapore was with one of the big three banks, and I've stuck with them since because I didn't change it. Most people are like that. And that is also why, especially depending on the industry or the sector that you're in, this part is so important in terms of user experience at the beginning, and especially if there's no dominant player. So to give you an example, Uniswap came in, and they're one of the first DeFi. Back then, I'm sure there were a few competing with Uniswap, but they rapidly took market share, not just because of what they offer technically, but also in terms of basically broadly the kind of offerings they have, the user experience, the basically the functions that they offer on the platform. And from there, a lot of people just, where do they go to swap? They go to Uniswap, and that's it. They didn't bother thinking about other DeFi platforms that comes in maybe they have something better. Maybe the user experience is actually way easier, more streamlined. But they struggle to sort of overthrow that because liquidity is an issue. User attention is an issue. After a while, you will not be shopping around too much. You'll be like, I finally found the one, and I'm used to it. It satisfies all the things I want to do in this space as much as I want. So I think that to me is extremely important for people building on Web3 right now.
Kuba, real quick, I have to ask you as a front-end dev, what's your favorite application that you keep using if we talk about front-end, except IPOR, of course?
Okay, except IPOR. I also think I agree that wallets are the drivers of UX improvements. Wallets and protocol products like Third Web, Bioeconomy, and Reactive Network that drives the market to introduce new better UX features for better UX. Yeah, I've been in crypto for 3 years, and I saw that how MetaMask develops, how MetaMask evolve into a real wallet, not only the wallet for geeks, for degens, but to be honest, 0 to 1 event was when I started using Rabi wallet. I experienced much more better feelings that I wasn't struggle about my assets and what happened after the transaction. So maybe the last word for developers who build that wallets, who build dApps for any developer. Just my advice is just to building the processes in that way that user can leave that process at any time and go back later. And when the user clicks something aside during the process, there is always way to go back. And another question, can user explore the app at any time? Is it possible, or just if the user clicks something, everything is broken? And on the other hand, do we allow user to focus on the main goal, on the thing that user because of user comes to us, or just they are constantly distracted? That should be the answer that every developer, every designer of the interface with the dApp should ask themselves. And yeah, I had something about MetaMask to mention, but on FCC I met a person who is a content designer in MetaMask. So hi Corey, and during that journey, 3 years journey, I saw that evolution of MetaMask, and I see what changes are brought to the MetaMask wallet to get it better product. And I asked that person about some details in person, and the answer was yes, I did that. Because I know that because I watched how MetaMask brings new feature and how is it better at communication. Communication is another key to build better UX.
Awesome, thanks, Kuba. And yeah, shout out to MetaMask as well for giving me several free T-shirts when LA Airport lost all of my luggage and I had no changes of clothes. So I guess I'm a paid shill maybe. But yeah, I know we're getting towards the end of our time here. I just wanted to quickly touch on a couple of other little things before we finish up here. So we've obviously recently announced, for anyone who hasn't seen, our first Reactive Network hackathon at the start of the week. We did plan to have Pangolin involved today, which we're hoping to have as one of the partners for the hackathon. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it, but I think we're going to be doing another town hall next month, and we'll have those guys and maybe some other hackathon partners and judges on board as well, and we'll be able to deep dive a lot more into the hackathon itself in that episode. Just to give a little info for anyone who hasn't seen it, this will be taking place on September 9th. It'll run for 8 weeks. It'll be a remote event, obviously, as most of the long-running ones are. And the prize pool for the hackathon itself will be $15,000, and an additional $30,000 worth of grants and incentives are also additionally available for developers who are working on creating the new wave of reactive dApps. So you'll hear more about how you can apply for those grants during the hackathon. Just as a pretty broad question, guys, what importance do you think hackathons still hold in Web3? Do you think this is something that's pretty essential for a project like ourselves?
I think hackathons are important to bring in basically developer attention. But we were very clear about, at least with Reactive, when developers join us, they do the hackathon, they do something, and then they go off. We know they're going to go off. We know they're unlikely to stick. They are bounty hunters. If you're a developer that's doing hackathons, unless you have something specific, like maybe you work for a company and then you do this certain hackathons because that's what your company needs. Chances are, if you're already employed, you wouldn't join those. You don't have the time. Most of those developers are students or unemployed developers, or someone that's trying to build their own project and they're testing different things out. And therefore, a lot of this is very short term. At least to us, I think hackathons are useful for that, basically building that portfolio of use cases, templates. If someone built something, even though it might be just done in a week, but if it's done in a way that we ask them to do, that can be used by someone else down the road, eventually we set the stage for the next wave of developers that's, they can just copy and paste. That everything we want to do, we want good user experience. That includes the developers themselves. Let them copy and paste the codes. I want to build this function, and I realize that someone else has built A, C, and D, and G already. I just combine those parts, and I just change the fields, and voila, I'm done. And that's what we want them to do. And that, to us, actually is very important for an ecosystem setup like us.
Perfect. Thanks, Ronkai. So I just want to finish things off with something a little lighter. We've already heard about, favorite dApps, but I think it's always cool to hear which projects or tokens different people in the space are interested in. You guys go to a lot of events, you talk to a lot of different projects, so I'm interested to hear your opinions. Are there any specific projects or any tokens that you guys are following at the minute? I'll give you a chance to pump your bags a little. Anything in mind?
Kuba, you want to go?
Yeah, personally, recently, I take a part of some layer 2. I use some layer 2 and chains, and yeah, I'm trying to find something interesting in there. And I heard about ZK rollups 2 years ago, and that seemed really interesting for me. How many opportunities that brings to Web3. So I looked at rather other chains like Scroll, like ZK Sync, Linea. Yeah, that's my that's the protocols, that the things my eyes are looking right now.
Yeah, fair enough. On my end, actually, I will turn attention to the very unpopular topic right now. It's Web3 gaming. And there's this one project called Bloodloop that I feel like, they are doing things right. Like majorly, the gaming space has been, doing really poorly if we talk about, price perspective. But I feel like I've been following them for a while now. I met them multiple times in different instances, different conversations we had, and I feel like they're just doing the organic, real like passion-driven building, and I feel like this sort of thing always gets rewarded as time goes on. So a shout out to the team at Bloodloop. They have just done their TGE like a month or two ago, and they're one of the few tokens price-wise that have appreciated in value in the past few months since TGE. So yeah, I guess that will be the one pick. Other than that, I'm actually just trying to stay in the blue chips right now, like Ethereum, Solana, and wait for the conditions to come back to look for a more juicy place. But also I feel like the sort of the blue chips of AI hype will do well, just because it's just too big of a narrative to go away after one wave, I believe. So I feel like the not meme type AI projects, which admittedly there are not too many of, will also awaken and do some good waves, so to say.
All right, nice.
I guess I can wrap this up. I think at least for me, my interest sort of started shifting towards the intersection between Web 2 and Web 3. Because our topic is on mass adoption, right? We're very Web 3 native project because we want to enable a lot of things that's completely on-chain. But that to me doesn't mean that we should just look only on Web 3 applications. I've been looking at the commercial side of things. I think there's a lot of projects that's trying a lot of different things out there. Obviously, I've always been involved in some capacity because I know as a friend basically. To Volkn, they are a Dutch game product code company. Sounds completely Web 2. Basically, that industry, if you buy a game on Steam, on PlayStation Store, on Xbox, the product code, nowadays you don't even see it, and this is a UX kind of improvements. But back then, when you still have CDs, there's a product code, you need to key it to sort of authenticate it. And eventually all this become backend. If you go on Steam and you look at all the game libraries that you have, there is actually a product code associated with that. But game companies, the publishers behind the scenes, they track it on Excel spreadsheets. They just haven't changed it in 30 years. And this company comes along and try to implement a system where from end to end, from publishing and then you have product codes, you can track where it goes. And even if you sell it on the secondary market, say you purchase Call of Duty and you play it for 2 weeks, 2 months, and then you just don't play anymore, you sell it to either to an online store or if you buy a physical copy, you can sell it at one of the game stores in your local neighborhood. The game publisher can keep track. And they're actually trying to put it on Web3 because this is the best use case for Web3. I'm trying to really look at how we can basically adopt Web3 technology for a lot of such functions. They're just one of them. There's another one that recently that's brought to my attention. Power Ledger has been trying to use blockchain to track, trace, and trade energy on the grid. Again, very good use case. How do they automate this? Can they, in a decentralized way, no longer need to build a very complex ecosystem to track it and automatically trade and maybe trigger certain functions. And it doesn't have to be Web 3 going to Web 2 and Web 2 going back to Web 3 to enact the whole thing. Maybe most of the functions can be on Web 3. And that to me is extremely exciting.
All right, thanks guys. Appreciate the tips. I'll definitely be looking into some of those, I think. I think that's a good place then for us to close things up. I know we're a little bit past time, but I feel like we've had a really good discussion there, especially on like the UX design topic. And it's really interesting to hear from you, Kuba. Obviously, you're pretty well qualified to talk on the subject. So thanks a lot for joining us, man. I'll definitely be looking out for what IPOR's up to in the future. Is there like any news or anything you want to share from your end before we go? Anything upcoming to mention? Or where people can follow you guys or anything like that?
Yeah, maybe. I have another advice for developers. It is just effect of what I see on any apps I'm using in Web3 and what I struggle to. It's not testing or rather testing only happy paths. So if there is any developer, any product designer, product head, I know Web3 are mostly startups. We focus on delivering features, but to make user happy, really, you should focus also on the not happy paths when something got crashed or something like that. So, last word. And thank you, guys. Thank you, Rong. Thank you, Emilijus. Thank you for having me. That was a pleasure.
Likewise.
Yeah, great advice, man. Can't go wrong there. Yeah, well, it's been fun, guys. I appreciate you all joining us, and thanks a lot to everyone who tuned in. We'll be back for, like I say, another one next month, and we will be discussing the hackathon in a lot of detail. So hopefully you guys will come back and join us then. Cheers, guys. Speak to you soon.
See you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.